Hi everyone. Today's topic is our license change, and there were a few questions raised. We made an announcement. Just wanted to reiterate and talk to our community, answer their questions. So if there are any, but we are receiving a few already. But before we start answering the questions, I wanted to share a story, like why we are open source, how it all started, and maybe it will help also you to understand why we switched the license, and more importantly, why we wanna be open source. And I'm gonna share the screen. So, and the story starts from 2021. I think Pari, you need to give me access to share the screen.
I just did it.
Yeah, thank you. So the story dates back to 2021, and this is when we released our first open source version. And it wasn't my first open source project. And here you see, my first open source project, and it's not a software project; it's a hardware project, and it's a board. It's a SATA board, which is pretty much a foundation for a NAS. And the original story of NetBird was to create the hardware that you would be able to access from anywhere without hassle, right? So you would be able to connect it from another country when you're traveling securely and without any third-party VPN provider, so that your connection goes directly from your mobile phone to your home network, where you actually host this kind of device. And in 2020, this is where it all started. I was developing this board, and together with hardware, I was developing a software piece, which is the foundation of NetBird's peer-to-peer technology. Now, fast forward to 2021, when we designed that board, created the prototype, and here's Jeff Geerling, a popular YouTuber. Maybe many of you know him. He's very well known in the Raspberry Pi community. He made a video about NetBird, about why I trust the board. That was, by the way, the name of the solution. And you see here, open source, and that page I think I created in 2021. And pretty much everything that was designed here was open source. And I'm a software engineer. I like open source. I've been using open source forever, and that is why NetBird is also open source. My co-founder Mike, and who also started working with me on NetBird in 2021, also is a big fan of open source. And whenever we decided to stop working on hardware, and the reason was the pandemic, so it was very hard to produce any kind of physical device, right? Especially for those who were not very familiar with this market. So we decided to open source the whole thing, right, and pivot to a peer-to-peer network, because we had already a prototype and the software prototype of this peer-to-peer network. And Maiken is an infrastructure engineer. He's very well familiar with the VPN setups. He was configuring them in many organizations, in many startups. And for him, it was a no-brainer, like that technology that we developed, the peer-to-peer network, was just connecting devices together without any extra configuration. And for him, it was obvious. For me, it was also obvious, because I'm a software engineer. I'm a consumer of a product that infra guys create, right? The networking, the infrastructure. So, and I remember things breaking the products were breaking when network didn't work. And for me, it was also an obvious thing. Like, as a software engineer, I could actually set it up myself without a hassle. So, and this is where NetBird started. Right? So we abandoned the hardware project, open sourced it. So that's a project that actually collected 228 GitHub stars. And then we pivoted to this one. And here you see that it's a still old name, and we were known as Wired Trusty back then, but then we were named to NetBird. And we decided to create this repository and work on a new project. And of course, the obvious choice for us was to make it open source, publish it on Reddit. And if you go back to Reddit and look for Wired Trusty, maybe you'll still find few posts about the very first posts about the technology, the very early stages of NetBird. And we decided to make it to open source it under BSD-3 license, which is a very permissive license. So it allows you to pretty much do everything with software without any warranties. And we've been with this license until pretty much this week. And this week we switched it to AGPL version 3. And there are a few reasons for that. So, and there were a few discussions internally, like what kind of license should we pick, how we're going to do it. Of course, there was a topic raised about using SSPL, server-side license that MongoDB uses. But this is not a truly open source license. And we, as true supporters of open source software, decided against it, of course. Okay, chose AGPL. And why AGPL? Because we didn't want to put this restriction of GPL license, of GPL, right? Just a regular GPL one, because it would require pretty much any modification to be published, and we just wanted to restrict it to AGPL because it forbids, or not, it forbids proprietary software, so it doesn't allow you to modify code and then not open it. So we wanted code to be open whenever any modification happens. Yeah, so one thing is that we are true believers in open source. That's why the license is still open source and it will remain so. And the second reason, of course, is that we have our we have running business, and it gives us more peace of mind that we are the creators and contributors to open source, and the whole team as well, that there will be no big hyperscaler that would come and just take our project, build 1,000 new cool features, and sell it as a service without contributing back to the community. Yeah, so that's the main reasoning behind the change. And I think at this point, I can show you what changed exactly. That was one of the questions. So if you go to our main repository, you'll see that our main license in the root has this node. And this node tells you that the root repository, or the root folder of the repository, is still under BSD-3 license. And only the management, signal, and relay folders are licensed under AGPL version 3. So why we did it like that? First of all, you see there is lots of there are lots of folders here, and there is some code that you can actually use in your projects. For example, shared SOC. That's an example, and some libraries that give you an ability to share um, a port pretty much on multiple applications with some BPF trickery. And that's a perfect example of the code that you can reuse in your project, even if you're not using NetBird, right? So, and we just wanted to keep it with a permissive license, BSD-3, so that there is no question um, about using it in your project. And there are a few folders like that. There's something in the DNS folder, and so on. So another reason is that the client application, which is mostly run by organizations, for example, that use our cloud version, they sometimes have legal requirements. Not they forbid running AGPL software or GPL software, and we didn't want to put this barrier in front of them. So that's why our client applications, whether it is a desktop application on Mac, Windows, on Linux, or it's a mobile application, Android and iOS, or whatever else, whatever other platform, it is also under BSD-3 license, which is permissive, and there will be no legal problem here. All right. But yeah, if you go into the folder that is described here, management signal or relay, you will find that they have a separate license. So that's another change. We just added the license, AGPL license to these folders, and here's the full text. I'm not going to read it. You all know it very well. So if you go to the relay folder, it's the same story. There's a license. Same with signal. And importantly, that these three components, they are part of the our control plane, and they are running in the cloud as well. And that's exactly where probably AGPL makes sense, right? Because you can also run the services, or theoretically a big player like any hyperscaler could run it and then maybe modify it and run it as a service. So in this case, we don't want to have this, and we put them under AGPL license. So these are three components of the management plane of NetBird. All right. Okay, what else do we have? I think I already answered a couple of questions, like why we are doing this, what changed. Maybe what does it mean to self-hosters? Nothing really. I think it doesn't really change in much, unless you have very strict legal requirements, and unless you're a huge organization that completely forbids AGPL, any GPL licenses, then you actually can talk to us. We'll definitely find a solution. If you are hosting it for your own business or at home, feel free to do it. There is no obligation. If you modify something, of course, you will have to open source this modification or contribute it to our project. Besides that, there is nothing really you have to do. For MSPs in particular, which is a large part of our customers, you can still use NetBird as before. So if you're using the cloud NetBird and MSP functionality there, nothing changes because the clients are BSD-3. If you are a self-hosting the service, so if you're self-hosting it to your customers, it's not like really you are selling as a service, so it's also fine. So if you just install it on the customer infrastructure. All right. Cloud users and customers are not affected, so that's clear. Okay. I also covered that what happens to companies building competing services. It's also clear if you build a competing service using our code, you will have to open source it. If you cannot comply with the AGPL license, we have a separate option. It's a commercial license. Reach out to us, and that shouldn't be a problem as well. And this change is effective from version 0.53. And every version before that is still under BSD-3 license. So if you're running old version, that's it is licensed under BSD-3. All right. I think we really covered pretty much everything, right? So all the questions that were asked.
I think so, yeah. This is quite well rounded now.
Yeah. And I gave a little story about NetBird. Maybe we should make another video about it in the future, just to give you a little bit more details how the story started. Maybe show the board, because I still have it at home. But let's wrap it up, I guess.
That's good. Cool.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Misha. See you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.